Hello students, this is the continuation of the chapter number 1, that is an approach towards the past. This is part 2. In the previous video we have already discussed some of the topics of this chapter, that is what is history, what are the importance of history, divisions of past like prehistory and history. Some of the sources also we have already discussed in the previous video, that is archaeological sources. In archaeological sources we have discussed monuments, artifacts, inscriptions, coins. These all we have already discussed in the previous video. Now in this video we are going to discuss rest of the sources of history, that is literary sources. So let's start. So students, let's know about the literary sources. What do you mean by literary source? Now a literary source is any document that is written in any language and it deals about the socio-political condition of the time when it was written, such as biographies, autobiographies, letters, treaties, pamphlets, journals, diaries, registers, commentaries, and all these make up literary sources. In other words, whatever our ancestors wrote in an evidence in the form of written records, these are called as literary sources. For example, inscriptions, biographies, autobiographies comes in the literary source. In the beginning, when paper was not invented, people of that period used to write on leaves, the dried bark of trees. Even they used to write on solid rock stone, copper plates, rock pillars, and clay tablets. So these all form the records or the information about the past. Now it is from these records our history is made as we know it today. Handwritten records of the past in the form of books are called as manuscripts. These accounts of contemporary events help us in knowing our past and provide us information about custom, religious beliefs, and culture of people. Now, literary source can be divided into two types. So, students, let's see what are the two types of literary sources. So let's come to the next topic, that is division of literary sources. Now literary sources are further divided into two types, that is first one is religious literature and second is secular literature. So let us know first about the religious literature. So religious literature are the writings or the written documents that deals with the religion is called as religious literature. Now for example, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the epics, Tripatakas, Jatakas, Brahmanas, all comes into religious text or books of the Indian subcontinent. Now these books or texts give us important information about the ancient India. So here we can see some pictures like epics are there, like Ramayana, Mahabharata. These epics, they give us lot of information about the past, about the religion, about the people, about the society. All these information we come to know from these religious texts. Okay. Now the next division of literary source is secular literature. Now what are secular literature? Secular literature are also written documents, but it deals with non-religious writings like autobiographies, biographies, like historical accounts, short stories, travelers accounts. All this comes into the secular literature. They are written to record happenings, events, administrative setup, rules and declaration by the kings. All these things we come to know from all this literature, that is secular literature, and it doesn't deal with any type of text related to religion. Okay. Now for example, you can say Arthashastra. It's a book written by Kautilya. So what we get to know from this book Arthashastra, that is we come to know how to run the government, gives us information about the Mauryan administration and contemporary society. So this book deals with the information about the past, but it is a non-religious literature. It gives information about the past, but regarding the government, regarding the administrative setup and all. Okay, now here we will find that traveler's account also comes into the secular literature. Now what are traveler's account? Traveler's account are also included in the secular literature, like a number of foreign travelers who visited India from time to time left very important social and political accounts of the country in their travelogues. Travelogues means in their accounts, in their books. They wrote about the experience, what they have got from their visit. They wrote in those books. Like for example, you can say Megasthenes uh, lived in India for some time as a Greek ambassador at the court of Chandragupta, and he wrote his experience in a book called Indika. So here from Indika we come to know lot of things about Chandragupta Maurya's empire, about the army, about the society. All these things we come to know from Megasthenes account, traveler's account, that is Indika. So traveler's account also grouped into secular literature. So students, let's see the next topic, that is geographical impact. So here what is the meaning of geographical impact? Geographical impact means the geographical features or the landforms. Here landforms refers to the mountains, hills, plateaus, coastal plains, water bodies. All these geographical features has impact on history, or it plays a major role in shaping history. So let's see, like what we find that from early history, mankind or humans constantly move from one hostile environment to more favorable living conditions. So the topography of the land, availability of water and the climate are the factors that have played a crucial role in the growth of human settlements. So what we find here, we see that the early humans, they used to move from one place to another in search of food, and wherever they used to get a favorable condition to settle, favorable conditions here, it means level land or availability of water or good climate, they used to settle. So here it means the environmental conditions also plays a very crucial role in the growth of human settlements. Now see the next point. Once man's basic needs like food, water, clothing and shelter are taken care of, he seeks improvement in his living conditions as well as his thought process. Both, however, are substantially affected by his environment, land conditions and climate. So what we find, so once our basic conditions are fulfilled, we think for more better living conditions, and even for good thought process also are also the things which we find in ourselves. Now this happens only when the environment is good. So what are the environmental factors, like land conditions or the climate or the surroundings? These are the things which affect uh, uh, our living conditions, or it helps in human settlement, growth in human settlements, all these things. So what we find from this, we find that the geographical factors also affect the course of history. So let's find out what are the physical features of India that has shaped the Indian history. First one, the Great Himalayas. Second, the Northern Plains. Third, the Deccan Plateau. And fourth one is coastal plains. So all these physical features has given a shape to the Indian history. So let us discuss the first one, that is Great Himalayas. Let's discuss about the Great Himalayas. The Great Himalayas starts from the Pamir Knot in the extreme northwest of ancient India. The Himalayan ranges extends towards the northeast. It acts as a natural wall protecting the country from the cold Arctic winds blowing from Siberia, thus saving northern India from extreme cold climate. Here in the map, the highlighted portion shows the the Great Himalayan Range, and due to which what we find that winds, the cold waves that comes from the Arctic, okay, doesn't enter India just because of this Great Himalayan Range. That means it acts as a natural barrier, and due to which what happens, our country, the northern part of our country, is saved from the extreme cold climate during the winter season. Okay. So let's see the other benefits of Himalayan ranges. So from the very beginning, or from a long time, Himalayas were considered as a natural barrier to protect India from invasions. But the Himalayan passes showed ways to foreign invaders into India. For example, passes like Khyber, Khurram, Bolan, Gomal provided easy routes between India and Central Asia. So these passes helped the Indo-Aryans, Indo-Greeks, Sakas and Kushanas to invade India. Later on, these people, the foreign peoples who came to India, who entered India or invaded India, became the part of Indian history. So let's move to the next point, that is the northeast India. Due to heavy rain and thick forest was difficult to cross, and thus most of this region remained in isolation or unexplored, hence enabled it to maintain its unique culture and identity, and they maintain their unique culture of that place and their identity. Okay, so let's move. The next geographical feature that has impact on history is northern plains. The northern plains are irrigated by three important river systems, Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra. This vast plain is the most fertile and productive region of the Indian subcontinent. This region has attracted settlements since times immemorial, be it the Harappan civilization, the Vedic culture, or important ancient cities like Patliputra. All are situated in these regions. The northern plains have determined the development of India. The places along the rivers have developed faster than any other part of the country. The rivers were the mode of travel. They provided the important resource of water and made the areas around them highly fertile. As a result, agriculture became prosperous near the banks of the rivers, and even trade could easily flourish near the rivers. Some important rivers of North India are Bias, Ganga, Yamuna and Indus. So you can see in the highlighted portion in the map given, that is the northern plains, and these northern plains are very fertile because of these rivers Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra, and that later became the part of history. So let's discuss the next geographical feature that has impact on history, that is Deccan Plateau. The plateau to the south of Vindhyan range is known as Deccan Plateau. The Deccan Plateau is surrounded by the Western Ghats in the western part of India and the Eastern Ghats in the eastern part of India. The dense forests in the Vindhyas make this region isolated from north, and thus the culture of the southern peninsula preserved intact for a long time. The long coastline of the southern peninsula was the chief factor encouraging trade and commerce via sea routes. So the Deccan part was always been a challenging part for the northern rulers due to its uneven landforms. So for a long time, the southern part of India was unexplored by the northern rulers. Even the long coastline of southern peninsula always been an encouraging factor for trade and commerce. People from foreign lands used to had trade with India through sea routes which were connected to southern peninsula. For example, the Romans had trade with India and made Arecimedo in south as their trade center. So all these facts later become history. So students, let's discuss the next topic, that is coastal plains. Now coastal plains of our country also greatly influence the history of our country, or you can say they also gave shape to the history, Indian history. So in the map shown we can see the blue highlighted area is referred as the coastal plains of our country. These plains starts from Gujarat to Kanyakumari at south, and from south, that is Cape Comorin or Kanyakumari, to West Bengal in east. So what we find, from Gujarat to Kanyakumari, that is western coastal plains, and from Kanyakumari to West Bengal, that is eastern coastal plains. So these coastal plains are far away from the main land and are very fertile. Why these plains are very fertile? These plains are very fertile due to the rivers which drain the water in the sea. So they make delta, so due to which these coastal plains are very fertile and very productive. At the same time, these coastal plains are open to the sea, and due to which it always encourage trade with other countries like Europe, South East Asian countries, African countries, and later these activities became the part of history, or you can say it gave shape to the history. For example, Portuguese traders had trade with India via this sea route, that is from the south of our country they came to India. And also the Britishers also started their trading activities from the coastline of India. And we find that Surat was the first trading center which was established in Gujarat. Later they made in Hooghly another trading center, so where they used to import or export goods from there, so that become a trading center. So here we find what, that these geographical features, like whatever we have studied about the like Great Himalayas, about northern plains, about Deccan plateaus, about coastal plains, all these geographical features, they played an important role in shaping history. Okay. So students, we have come to the end of the chapter, and this is the last important topic, that is concept of dates in history. So here we will know what is the importance of dates in history. Now dates in history are very important. A collection of historical facts would be a useless pile of information unless the events were arranged sequentially in order of their occurrence, that is chronologically. In history, we study about changes that occur over a period of time. The moment we make comparison between the past and the present, we refer to time. We talk of before and after. In fact, some dates and events act as landmarks because of the lasting impact they create. For instance, 15th August is celebrated as India's Independence Day. So it has very importance in our Indian history. So in the same way, earlier historians were using terms like BC for before Christ and AD for that means Anno Domini, that is a Latin word which means in the year of Lord Jesus Christ. So but now in India, Indian history, Indian historians, they make it as a BCE, or before Common Era, in place of BC, and CE for Common Era, and it is used in place of AD. Okay. So students, here we will know about the timeline, which is very important. Now this is a dating system in history. So here you can see at the center 0 is written. Now we take the year of birth of Jesus Christ as 0. The left side of the given timeline represent the years before Christ was born and is called as BCE, that is before Common Era. For example, 1000 BCE, that means 1000 years before Christ, and it is written as 1000 BCE. All dates before the birth of Christ are counted backwards. For example, 1000 BCE will come first and 2000 BCE will come later. On the other hand, anything that happened in the year after the birth of Jesus Christ are expressed in CE. Like 2000 means 2000 years after the birth of Christ. Here in this book we will refer to dates going back from the present using 2000 or 2020 as our starting point. Okay, so here some abbreviations are also given, like CE means common era, BCE means before common era, BC means before Christ, AD means Anno Domini. Okay, thank you students.